Look, Cotton, it's the Iceborne logo. I wonder what it could be representing.
Ooh, it's an Aptonoth, a Diablos, a Yonkutku, a Gypsaros.
Cotton, you're holding the binoculars backwards.
Oh, what's in dog's name is that?
Well, that is exactly what we are here to talk about. For the most part, the logos of Monster Hunter games have parts that are easily compared to a new monster introduced in that game. For example, see the Rathalos with the original Monster Hunter, Gore and Shagaru Magala on 4U, Bloodbath on GU, or this, Legiacris? Either way, with a logo, a picture meant to encapsulate the feeling of the game itself, it isn't hard to see why people would try their best to look a little further into it. There are thousands of theories out there about what this logo could represent, but I've picked what I believe to be the most plausible and the most interesting. So what secrets could the Iceborne logo hold?
Fatalis.
This one is simple, an easy guess by a hopeful kind of person who just wants their grubby little hands on this beast of a black dragon. Fatalis is an absolute monster of a monster who has always been the Mac Daddy of monsters as far as lore goes. But up until now, his fight itself has been a little lackluster, at least until you fight a white Fatalis.
That's racist!
Personally, I would adore the ability to see Fatalis redone with world mechanics and systems and given a little bit of extra love to get him done right. But there are a few major holes with this theory that can't be ignored. First off then is that Fatalis was already the end boss of the original Monster Hunter game, and making him the big boy of another one feels just a touch phoned in. However, it could definitely be forgiven if he was changed in a meaningful way. Really guys, I cannot understate how much I want to see a new World Fatalis redo. The next topic to cover then is location. We only ever see Fatalis in Castle Schrade or in volcanoes because sometimes they go crazy in red. But the idea of one migrating to the new world seems like a lot, right? Unless you remember why any Elder Dragon would move to the new world in the first place, which is to die. Yes, I think of Fatalis, hell, the white Fatalis, the Ravager of Castle Schrade on the verge of natural death, could maybe come to the new world. However, it seems a little unlike a Fatalis to accept imminent death, doesn't it? But this is where I'm about to sound crazy, because I want to see the devs go crazy and give us cool monsters. Zora Magdaros traveled from the same direction as the 5th Fleet, so the assumption can be made that he came from the general direction of the old world. What if, by some crazy interaction, a Fatalis scale wound up on that Zora Magdaros, and that Fatalis scale just sat there, waiting in transit, only to be dropped off by Zora in the new world when he finally passed on. Fatalis can grow back from a single scale as the story goes. So what is to stop a single Fatalis-y bit getting to the Iceborne Island either from Zora or some other happenstance and a Fatalis growing back from that? Nothing, I say! Nothing except for this logo. This is a Capcom official symbol for Fatalis and it looks nothing like the Iceborne logo. Even this symbol for white Fatalis, which is a similar style to the Iceborne logo, looks nothing like it. Just to me, at least. I don't see it matching, unless that isn't a living Fatalis. What if it is a dead Fatalis? Or more specifically, what if the head in the logo is the skull of a Fatalis? Well, that brings us to my Frankenstein-like crustacean creation.
Crabtalis.
What if a crab had a Fatalis skull on its butt and fought similarly to Fatalis because of it? Obviously, the name here is a bit of a placeholder, but what if, and it is a long shot, that right there is a Fatalis skull, and the thing below the sapphire star on the logo is crab legs? Okay, but how did a crab get a hold of a Fatalis skull? Well, maybe he didn't. Earlier I talked about Fatalis having the ability to regrow from a single scale. Well, what if the scale I theorized, or any other scale of Fatalis, could have come riding in and wound up on a crab that inhabits the new island in Iceborne? Probably it would die and turn into a regular Fatalis. That's how most things would react to a Fatalis scale, right? Unless that crab was particularly powerful, at minimum an Elder Dragon level monster as far as I'm concerned. And what if this power caused problems for the Fatalis scale and his regeneration abilities? Not completely stopping the transformation, but instead creating some sort of weird science fusion.
Weird science.
It's purely sexual.
The scale, searching for a skull that changed, turned what was once the skull of a normal New World monster on the back of the crab into a full-on Fatalis skull. The crab's shell, overgrown by thick, sharp, black scales. The claws, more like a pair of sheep shearers than regular crab claws, and of course became significantly sharper to match. The crab, of course, develops the necessary organs for fire breathing, and for all intents and purposes becomes what Fatalis would be if Fatalis was a crab. For whatever reason, the crab's shape and ideals, it's existence as a creature would not yield to Fatalis, and this being was created. That said, for this to even be possible, we would need a new crab monster, and I'd say he would need to be at least Elder Dragon power level for this to be plausible. So my personal hat to throw into the theoretical crab-shaped ring is the Nergigante Skull Crab, a purely physical beast. Nergigante skull on the back, used less for the skull itself than for the horns that came with it, as those things are massive and dangerous.
Dalamadur.
Cotton, you just got a black screen going right now.
I know, Timmy. I'm trying to avoid spoilers for a monster I haven't seen before.
Oh, here, plug the camera into my head. I have some digital memories of Dalamadur you can download while I play them in my robot brain.
Wait, what?
I'm a robot?
Okay, then.
Dalamadur, then, is a large, spiky, snake-like elder dragon who you might recognize if you have seen any of these skeletons around the Rotten Vale, as they belong to members of the Dalamadur species. Being a long creature with spikes, some people see the similarities to the Iceborne logo. So let's talk about the validity of this monster. First off, there are Dalamadur skeletons in the Rotten Vale, as I've already said. This means that Dalamadur can, in fact, come to the New World. And in the past, Dalamadur have come to the New World, which sets a precedence for their migration and puts one positive in Dalamadur's camp. However, as with Fatalis, Dalamadur has been a major presence in a Monster Hunter game before, and a very recent one in Monster Hunter 4. Here is where it starts to break up a little bit, because while the symbol representing a snake monster is semi-reasonable, it is hard not to notice the little bits coming off the portrayed monster go the opposite way of Dalamadur's angry spikes. As such, some people are even suggesting Najarala because they like the snake-type shape, and I can dig the snake type shape. So what if it is potentially a new snake monster? Maybe even an ice snake. That'd be cool, right? Maybe another massive snake, or maybe just a regular sized killer snake. Maybe it's just a hopeful child in me, but I really want new monster shapes, and new snakes would be just awesome.
Amatsu.
The Storm Dragon himself!
Amatsu would be a welcome addition to the Monster Hunter World cast. Honestly, though, every monster would be. I can't think of a single old monster I wouldn't be happy to see remade with World's mechanics. A monster as beautiful as this, however, is one I have an especially high desire for, considering how stunning a fight a monster like Luna can get. I can only imagine how wonderful this fight would look. Let's start with positives then. Amatsu's shape and general figure absolutely does translate into the Iceborne logo, and even the little limb-like extensions could easily be a stylistic choice to represent Amatsu's horns and backwards-facing frills or something, but we also know, at the very least, all Elder Dragons have a potential reason to travel to the New World. Reasons against Amatsu, however, is first the breath discrepancy. In the Iceborne logo, the creature is puffing out some type of elemental breath. Personally, it sort of looks like fire, but it definitely isn't lightning, and there are much better ways to represent wind than this if it wanted to be wind. Second negative, which I will be bringing up super quickly due to repetition, is that it would be weird to have an old monster that isn't at least a black dragon be a new flagship. And then third, which has some unanswered questions to it, is that Capcom was unable to make the leviathan shape work for World initially, as Legiacris was an originally intended monster. The main question there, though, is does it work now? As it would make sense for the devs to keep trying. If that were the case, Legiacris would be likely for the game, and people have said the logo even sort of looks like Legiacris, except again, he has been a flagship before and doesn't really have a breathy looking attack. But even more than with the snake shape, I think this looks Leviathan-y. Some people have said Glacial Ignactor even, which I don't think is the least reasonable theory I've ever heard, but personally I'm hard set on this symbol being a new monster if it's a monster at all, or at the very least a new subspecies of an existing monster, which is where we come to my suggestion here. What if there was an Amatsu that covered a different element, a floating Leviathan type creature that covered something like ice, which could be controlled by super frigid winds, which would explain him still having the ability to fly, combined with something like fire to have a real spectacle of a fight.
A new Xeno'jiiva.
Xeno'jiiva, as we see and fight it in World, is in a stage of infancy, either literally a baby of its species or a creature that has just been through some sort of metamorphosis, adjusting to its new shape, its new form, and its new abilities. This is where we get really interesting. If you look at the Monster Hunter World logo itself, you will notice two dragon-shaped figures facing each other with some sort of breath or element coming out of their mouths, wings coming off their backs, and little decals in the middle. The first thing you can notice is that both of these dragons have the little back ridges like the Iceborne logo, just in a slightly different style. The dragons have the little back ridges. The one on the left is decorated with stars, which makes me link it to Xeno immediately due to all of the Sapphire Star references. But the Iceborne logo is just one dragon, one facing to the left like the dragon on the right was, and it appears to be that dragon. We got rid of Xeno'jiiva, and now there's just one. If these monsters represent these, it brings me to the new question. What if there was a second Xeno or a Xeno-type creature? What if there were two monsters in a chrysalis or an egg or whatever it is that we find Xeno in? So what are you? What if the second monster was deeper, maybe out in the ocean near the new island, near where Zora died, and this creature hatched or came out or whatever it is at the same time as Xeno, only we didn't find this one. Over the time between Xeno's death and Iceborne, this other monster was allowed the time to come to terms with itself and learn how to control its abilities. For diversity's sake, let's say this Xeno is at least a different color as well. The original Monster Hunter World logo comparison making me want to say black. On a normal day, the only element I could see making sense for a variant kind of Xeno is regular fire, which could conflict hard with Ignactor and Decantor beam territory, so I'm going to lean a little bit on my guess of black and say, what if the beam was a sort of bright green or purple and it inflicted poison? This type of situation would create a precedent for the Xeno'jiiva species of being capable of being different types of monsters, and I am more than willing to suggest the reason for this could be that it depends on the type of monsters that die near Xeno, as Xeno feeds off the energy of these monsters. What if the specific monster it feeds on, or the amount it eats, just as a general quantity type of thing, decides its power and abilities? Well, that's all just a theory, a lot of ideas and not a lot of any sort of proof, but hey, I think it's a possibility, and it's a really neat possibility at that.
The Great Shield.
Ignoring the upper half of the logo and looking purely at the sapphire star downwards, I can't help but be reminded of a previous creation of mine, and I won't spend long on this because there's absolutely nothing I can say in favor or against it because it's a really abstract concept, but a while back I came up with a weapon concept for sort of blunt dual blades that you could hold together and make a shield to protect you from attacks, and it was real neat, and I love the idea, and this part of the symbol just reminded me of the weapon. So you get to hear me happily reminisce.
Nothing.
At the end of the day, it is hard to pretend the Iceborne symbol has to mean anything at all. Most of the previous symbols that have contained the flagship monsters of the games would have been nearly impossible to guess before seeing the monster because it was a new monster, and it's likely that that's the case here. The symbol probably contains a monster we've never seen before, but we'll recognize in the symbol after seeing in-game. But my other suggestion is that the symbol just sort of is nothing, at least monster-wise.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
It is a crest for the 6th Fleet. Having tackled all of the major threats in the New World, it was finally ready to begin efforts towards colonization. As of course, why else would the Research Commission be here? The old world has villages and civilians everywhere, and it is a ridiculously dangerous place to be. So why wouldn't the Guild be constantly looking for new places to migrate civilians? And the newly cleaned up and relatively safe New World seems like as great a place as any. I mean, come on, people, it's called the New World, for heaven's sake. That is exactly what North America was referred to by European settlers. I'm just saying, the world symbol is the crest for Astera. Why couldn't the Iceborne logo be the crest of a 6th Fleet, which could even be carrying civilians and the means to start a full village? It could even be the crest for that village itself. Alright everybody, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and these are all of the things that I think the Iceborne logo could, or at least should, represent. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the little notification bell for more, and most importantly, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay sweet.